You are watching the latest edition of the Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic is the importance of balanced mineral supplementation. Many experts believe that our soils today have been depleted of important mineral nutrients, which are the building blocks of life. My guests today have been helping people with mineral supplementation for over 20 years. If you are considering any type of vitamin or mineral supplementation, my advice, stick around for the latest edition of the Wellness Hour.
Welcome to the Wellness Hour, a penetrating look at a variety of health issues. Your host is the recognized expert on wellness issues, Randy Alvarez.
You are watching the latest edition of the Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today we have two guests. First, we have Jack Grobin, president of BioTrend Technologies, a health consulting company that specializes in the analysis of hair mineral tests. Mr. Grobin works with thousands of people doing hair mineral analysis as an aid in determining mineral balance and its relationship to health and wellness. He is a nutritional consultant and works one-on-one with clients that have all types of health concerns. Also joining us is Rick Wagner. Rick is the founder and CEO of Eidon Incorporated, which manufactures and distributes a complete line of liquid mineral supplements. Rick's supplements can be found on the shelves of just about every major health food store here in San Diego, including Henry's Marketplace and Jimbo's Health Food Store. Jack and Rick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy. It's a pleasure to be here.
And the same, Randy.
Today's topic is the possible benefits of mineral supplementation. But first, I want to talk about your backgrounds. And let's start with you, Jack.
Randy, my degree is in public health with an emphasis on nutrition. And I've been doing nutritional consulting now for over 25 years. One of the real drawbacks early on was knowing when a client came to you exactly what recommendations do you make. Years ago, we used to use a combination of blood tests and urine tests, even a questionnaire. In fact, one of the questionnaires we used took almost 3 days to fill out. But even with that, there were drawbacks. With blood testing, for example, as valuable as it is otherwise, the blood test is a very good idea of showing you which minerals are getting transported from one part of the body to the other. But with the exception of iron, not necessarily which minerals are actually being stored in the body. They're actually available to the tissue.
Okay, so the testing you're doing is specifically for minerals.
It's specifically for minerals,
okay.
Yes, because this is actually the foundation, the backbone of all nutrition. Even though a lot of the emphasis these days has been on vitamins, really, if you look at in terms of priority, the minerals are much more important than the vitamins. In fact, some vitamins can't even function properly without the proper minerals being there in the right balance for them to do their job as they should. Urine tests do a very good job showing what's getting eliminated from the body, but still, it doesn't show you what the body actually has available to it. The hair testing does the best job of showing actually what's available to the tissue of the body at that time. And so over a period of time, and we did this painstakingly over a period of several years after going through several of these testing techniques, as I mentioned, and the assessment techniques using the questionnaires and so on.
So you have, by the way, you have what sounds like, with my notes, like a clinical practice, like a clinical setting.
I do.
Where clients go to you for this for this balancing effect of minerals. Is
That's
that correct?
exactly right.
Okay.
In fact, once we know that the hair mineral test, let me just say it this way. The levels of the minerals in the hair correspond remarkably well to the levels of the minerals that are actually available to the tissue of the body. Now, we take a look also for things like certain toxic metals, because it's not only which minerals are there, which are important for the normal biological processes, it's also, do you have anything causing interference as well? And these toxics interfere with normal biological function. So we want to know which toxics are there and the amounts of those toxics are there.
And this shows up in a hair test?
It shows up in the hair test. It shows up remarkably well in the hair test. As a matter of fact, the Environmental Protection Agency has been using the hair mineral test as the test of choice for measuring the highest priority toxic metals in children as part of the World Health Organization's global monitoring program. There's no question that this test is an accurate, viable method to give us very good insight, not just into the toxics, but also in a number of nutrient minerals as well. One of the other aspects of the hair test, in many respects, the most important one to me, is the mineral ratios. It's the ratio between, or the ratios between minerals that give us the greatest insight into what's happening in the person's metabolism. For example, you can have a very high level of calcium in a hair test. In fact, a lot of women, when they get their hair test back, say, well, gee, you know, I've got a lot of calcium, that's great. I said, well, it may not be so great, because you've got to take a look at how much calcium is there compared to phosphorus, how much calcium is there compared to magnesium, and so on. Everyone these days is concerned with reducing the risk factors for osteoporosis. It's a major epidemic in American society. And, of course, we're getting this advertising constantly calcium this and calcium that. In fact, we've got just about calcium fortified anything.
So you're
you can
implying there's
imagine.
not a calcium problem?
There's a calcium problem, but it may not be calcium deficiency in the classical sense. It may be the ability to utilize and put calcium where it should be.
Jack, for just one moment, what I want to do, before we go into the specifics of what you're seeing in your practice as far as the benefits to the patient, I want to talk to Rick for a moment, because your supplements are selling in just about every major health food store here in San Diego, and these are mineral supplements. Tell me about that.
Randy. Eidon, starting about 6 years ago, began assembling a line of liquid minerals. And we started with a product called silica, and then have expanded into minerals such as calcium, magnesium, potassium. We put together a full range multiple mineral supplement. We also have a joint support supplement. They are all liquid, tasteless, and very easy to drink. And
Now,
we've
why
got them in
liquid
all sorts.
over a tablet or a capsule?
That's an excellent question, Randy. And you can ask the same thing about how is the best way to truly absorb something. In nature, when we get our nutrients, we are getting them from fruits and vegetables. Those fruits and vegetables deliver the minerals in a liquid format. Once you chew them and swallow them, you've actually juiced them. We are not designed to eat dirt. And if you think about taking a normal mineral supplement in a pill or a capsule or a tablet, it's literally ground up dirt in a format then that you take in your body must try to break down. We've bypassed that entire concept and gone to the concept of how they are delivered in nature.
So the liquid minerals then are absorbed better in the system, faster, more efficiently, that kind of thing.
Virtually 100%.
Now with these minerals though, I mean, is there really a problem? I mean, if people eat vegetables, if they eat salads, don't you think that they're getting the minerals that they need?
Great question, Randy. If you were to sit and look back now at the history of agriculture in this country, beginning at when the first settlers came over, they would settle land, farm it for a maximum of 10 years, and then it would stop growing crops. They would then pick up, move on, clear more land. It would be productive for 8 or 10 years.
Because they didn't have fertilizers like
They had no fertilizers,
okay.
And they didn't recognize that they had to resupplement the soil. They would grow the same plants in the same spot. Those plants took out specific minerals out of the soil. Eventually, the minerals that those plants thrived on were gone.
So 10 years worth of planting.
Right.
You're saying it sucks all the minerals and the vitamins out of the soil.
Right. We haven't learned much since that time. Now we have huge agribusiness doing basically the same thing. They grow the same crops on the same soil. They do know supplementation to the point of potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And that's it.
So they fortify the soil with the least amount they can to make it grow.
They grow very rapidly, actually. But it's only, as Rick said, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus.
And they look good as when they grow.
They get very high yields. In fact, you know, the Department of Agriculture does studies every so often, and they test the amount of trace minerals that are actually available in fruits and vegetables and so on. In fact, I remember the title of a chapter of a book written by Adele Davis back in the 1960s, and talking about exactly the same thing. And one of the things she said was, the name of her chapter was, which apricot grown where? In other words, meaning, if you're depending on apricots for your source of copper, which they are a good source of copper, by the way, which apricot do you have and where was it grown? Because the ability of that fruit or vegetable to supply those mineral nutrients depends on where it was grown. In fact, as I already mentioned, the Department of Agriculture studies, we know now that, for example, spinach, the amount of iron in spinach today is just, it pales in comparison to what it was just 50 years ago. So with the modern agribusiness, as Rick had mentioned, you have continual depletion of everything except for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but that does not include the trace minerals like zinc and copper and manganese.
So that's what's not being added to the soils?
No.
Precisely.
Okay, so your philosophy then, and your business is built on the fact that our soils are depleted of the necessary minerals that we need for overall good health.
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
Not only that everyone's requirements are different. You know, we talk about individuality in every aspect of life. Roger Williams at the University of Texas wrote a book about 35 years ago called Biochemical Individuality, when he states that as different as people look physically, different skin tones, hair color, the size of their stomach, how tall they are, how short they are, all being considered normal. So if someone is 6'5", that's normal. If someone is 5'3", that's normal too. And his point is that as different as we are in terms of how we look, we also have just as unique differences in terms of how our bodies function biochemically. The ability to detoxify, for example, to eliminate certain substances, the ability to eliminate certain toxic substances is dependent on how efficient certain liver enzymes are, where they can be very efficient in some people and not so efficient in other people. And that's a big part of the differences from biochemically from one person to another. We also know from a nutrition standpoint, and this is how we started with this whole thing. I mean, years ago, when someone came to us and said, look, what do I eat? What do I take? What supplements should I take? And if you use questionnaires, you're getting the people's feedback about how they feel, but that's also limited to what people can actually remember. And sometimes that's not always all that reliable. And then if you go off symptoms only, I'll give you an example. The symptoms of too much copper are exactly the same as symptoms of too little copper. The symptoms of too much zinc are exactly the same as too little zinc. What do you do? Yeah. How do you know to start? And so it's not just, well, number one, you're correct. It is, what is the depletion level in the soils? We know it's extensive, with the exception probably of the organic farmers who are doing a very good job. In fact, that movement is growing now, thank goodness. But also, with the biochemical individuality now, we have an environment today that no one had dreamed of in terms of the number of toxics in the environment and so on, that has affected greatly how we process things. We have a number, even if you live in a fairly pristine environment, there's still going to be a number of toxic substances that you have to detoxify.
And minerals, the proper balance of minerals, helps your body fight these things off.
It helps balance everything.
Yeah.
In fact,
well, let me ask you this. Okay, let's just suppose we're able to agree on one thing then. Let's say that our minerals are depleted from our soils and they're not making it into the fruits and vegetables. What are the dangers now to our bodies not getting the minerals that we need?
Can I add two more things that create a deficiency of minerals?
What's that?
They are the way we have processed our foods. Literally today, most of the foods that we eat have all of the essential nutrients processed out. And then the cooking of foods. I mean, all you have to do is steam your broccoli or your
Sure.
carrots. What you're pouring out in the water that's left over is literally probably all the rest of the minerals that were available in that vegetable.
in fact, and sometimes the nutrient levels in the water is higher than the vegetable that you just got just left over. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break.
Triple whammy.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about specific supplementation and how you're doing something a little different working together, where with the follicle testing or the hair testing and what you're doing to bring back balance to the mineral level in people's bodies. You're watching The Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're talking about mineral supplementation in a liquid form for better health. We'll be right back. You're watching The Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're talking about mineral supplementation. Let me ask both of you, how big of a problem is it, these mineral deficiencies today in people? What do you think?
Randy, the question today is, are we experiencing diseases? Is arthritis a disease? Is heart disease a disease? Is cancer a disease? Well, from my definition, a disease is something that you catch. What we have today are what I like to call chronic nutrient deficiency symptoms, because you don't catch those diseases. They come from within and they stay there. They are not, they're not something that someone can sneeze in front of you and you're going to get. Why are they here? What's happening? Are genes going awry? Does the body just naturally go to these things after a while? Well, no, because these things can happen almost at any age. What we are experiencing are mineral imbalances, and these mineral imbalances affect people in different ways. Now, that's where genetics come in. Your genetic predisposition to arthritis or heart disease or cancer or whatever it might be is what's going to create how you respond to a mineral imbalance. But I am convinced, and I'm sure Jack will also support me in this 100%, is that it's being caused by either mineral lacks totally or imbalances of one mineral to another. And that's what we have put together. Serendipitously, we met about 6 years ago, and Jack had the experience in evaluating hair mineral tests, and I had the line that we could utilize to specifically address in a very, very precise way what your deficiencies were and what you needed to take to get to a balance. And we can give you those minerals now in a format where we know exactly how
You're
much
kind of tailor-making your mineral prescriptions in a way.
Right.
To the individual.
Right. Whereas what you have normally to choose from are capsules or tablets, which you have no idea how much you may or may not be absorbing. And in many cases, you're not getting any. If your doctor says take 1,500 milligrams of calcium and you take a calcium pill, the probabilities of getting the calcium that you may or you may not need are very, very uncertain. And the next question is, do you really need 1,500 milligrams? And so what we've done is we now take a look at your mineral status from a parts per million standpoint, which is how a hair test is presented and actually computed. And with that, then, we deliver those minerals in a parts per million. So in
this liquid form.
In the liquid form.
Okay,
only.
now this isn't some kind of a multi-level marketing product. I mean, this is a product that's selling on shelves. I mean, this is a legitimate thing you're talking about.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Let me ask Jack this, because you work with the clients. I mean, you work with people. Right. Tell me this. Okay, if somebody's not eating fruits and vegetables on a daily basis, are you convinced, without even meeting them, and they're not supplementing, they have a mineral deficiency?
Even if they were eating fruits and vegetables on a regular basis, even if they were drinking vegetable juices on a regular basis, I would probably say the same thing, with very rare exception. Over the period of 25 years, I've worked with tens of thousands of clients. And of those clients, I bet you can count on maybe a couple of hands the ones that had essentially perfect hair tests on their first time around. In fact, most of those people were elderly people that were born in a time where the quality of their food was better, the mineral content was better, they had fewer stresses, they had fewer environmental stresses, fewer biological insults, so to speak, that would stress their bodies, and they adapted much better. In fact, recently we did a test on a 75-year-old woman. First time I've ever seen anything come back, everything came back perfectly. And now part of that's going to be genetics too. But also her environment was very clean. She was raised on a farm. Of course, in those days, most people were raised on farms as well. And as I mentioned, the quality of their food was entirely different. So they were getting a much better balanced array of minerals from, especially in the family farms, which many times let fields lay fallow, as Rick mentioned earlier, to optimize the amount of minerals that they were actually getting in their fruits and vegetables and so on. In today's time, also, as Rick mentioned earlier, that it's virtually impossible, even if you're eating 100% organic all the time, to have a perfect mineral balance. You need to know what your starting point is. Do you have too much calcium? Do you have too little?
So do you think it's a mistake then, some people, without testing first,
oh, yes.
A lot of people,
it's a major mistake.
The hottest, greatest, newest supplement.
Rick and I have talked about this a lot, that the supplement of the week.
Throwing money down the
everything sounds great on paper. In fact, how can you possibly live without it? But then, if it doesn't match you well, the worst that could happen, now fortunately for most of these things, they're not harmful, the worst that could happen is just waste your money on it. The other thing is, if you're taking, for example, a blanket recommendation for X amount of any mineral, calcium, for example, some women who take the recommended doses of calcium may actually inadvertently start to cause osteoporosis in themselves.
How's that?
Well, because if you're taking a large amount of calcium, calcium can start to displace other minerals that are important for calcium management. In fact, there's a whole series of trace minerals, copper being one of the most important, silica is another, magnesium is another one, that's very important in how calcium actually gets utilized. I mean, ultimately, you want, in fact, it's true of all the minerals, but particularly of calcium, you want calcium to go in places where it should be.
In supporting bone.
Exactly, that's right.
Not like a spur, but you want it to go
Right.
to
Well, that's a very good point, because if you take a look at people that are mismanaging calcium, it can occur in any number of different ways. In fact, bone spurs is one. If you happen to have the genetic predisposition for kidney stones, kidney stone formers are another. In women who have fibromyalgia, we know now that there are tiny calcium crystals that are depositing in the muscles that are the most tender. If calcium is out of position, it causes inflammation. If it's causing inflammation, it's causing pain, but it also may increase disease processes as well. In fact, hardening of the arteries, arteriosclerosis, is what? It's too much calcium in a place where it shouldn't be,
right.
and that's in the artery.
Are you saying, though, that supplementing with minerals can help the calcium go to the right places?
Yes, it can. We know that it can. In fact, you reduce the risk. It doesn't say that it's going to clear up any diseases. This is not a medicine. These are not drugs. But they help to rebalance these minerals so you can start to reduce the risks. If someone just has a terrible genetic profile for coronary artery disease, it doesn't mean that that's going to prevent that 100%. It's going to make them stronger. It's going to reduce those risks for them if they're well balanced. In fact, if you're well balanced, the better balanced that you are, the less likely you are to have to deal with some of these things. The better your body will be able to utilize its natural resistance for all sorts of things. Things like infection, to maintain normal immune function, to help to minimize inflammatory stresses. And then also, kind of the heart and soul of all this is how well is calcium being utilized? How well is calcium being managed? If you're taking a huge dose of calcium every day, but you're not paying any attention to the trace minerals that help to govern calcium, then you're just going to end up putting calcium in places where it shouldn't be.
In the wrong place.
Yeah. In fact, if you take a look, the highest per capita incidence of osteoporosis in the world is in the nations that have the highest per capita consumption of calcium. Now, if the elimination of osteoporosis was solely dependent on the per capita consumption of calcium in the diet, why don't the countries that have the highest per capita intake of calcium have the lowest incidence of osteoporosis in the world?
Well, I guess Americans, we're supplementing more with calcium than any
And we
other
have a
country.
very high intake of dairy products as well.
Now we're going to take another quick break, but one of the things that you mentioned, you said, Randy, how I got involved in this supplementation was a calcium issue at the back of your neck. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell me about that before the break.
Very, very briefly, I literally had, over the last, from the age 50, actually age 45 to age 50, I began to experience a lessening of my range of motion in my head, more pain in my neck. In fact, it got to the point at about age 50 that I had to go in and get my neck x-rayed. It was so painful. My range of motion had gone from 90 degrees to 45 degrees. If I turned my head too quickly in one way, I felt my vertebrae hang up and rub against each other. It was extremely painful. Went in, had it x-rayed, nothing showed up on the x-ray. And I was told that even though it didn't show up, I more than likely had calcium buildup, because in many cases on an x-ray it won't show up. Fortuitously, I began taking a mineral supplement called silica about 2 months later. Long story short, the silica, all by itself, it was the only other thing I was taking, and I didn't take it for that reason. I took it to see if it would grow hair. So this works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't work for a particular application. In a month and a half, I began to notice a difference in my neck. Long story short, it's about between 6 and 8 months. All of the pain was gone from my neck. I had full range back, and at that point, light bulbs started going on in my head, and that is the point when I said, minerals are far more important than we give them credit for.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I want to find out more about what these people are saying. I mean, people are going to the store and they're purchasing these minerals. You get emails, you get letters, you were telling me. I want to hear some of these stories, as well as any medical or what the mainstream medicine views are about supplementing with liquid minerals. You're watching The Wellness Hour. We're talking about mineral supplementation. We'll be right back. You're watching The Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're talking about supplementing with minerals. Let's start with what you're hearing from people that are supplementing with minerals. Because for me, sitting here, frankly, it's a little hard to believe. But you guys are really fanatical at the break and telling me that if I knew what you knew and saw, that I would be amazed. What are they saying?
Well, any number of things. I mean, the scope of my clients goes from children with ADD.
So what have you seen turned around?
Well, actually, when we take a look at the results of the mineral test to see where the imbalances are, for example, if they have high levels of toxic metals, we take measures to help to remove those toxic metals, things like lead, cadmium, mercury, aluminum. In fact, the single most common thing we find in ADD kids is a high level of aluminum, and we take measures to help to remove those.
So you have nutritional protocols, supplement protocols
Yes.
that can leach these minerals out of the system?
I've seen hair results with children with ADD where maybe one mineral even showed up on the test. I mean, it looked like they had none available to them at all.
And then they have the high toxics to go along with
Well,
that.
have you seen people that have taken minerals and then what goes away? Arthritis, ADD. I mean, you're
Well, the
making bold
inflammatory
statements
pattern.
here.
I mean, if you take a look at in fact, one of the most important things we look at on the test result is how is this person's body generating inflammation? Now, inflammation is a normal part of the way the immune system keeps us healthy, but you don't want it out of control. If people are generating a high amount of inflammatory stress, it could be any of the itises, arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, gastritis. We know now that inflammation can show itself in more subtle ways, that it maybe takes an extra day or two to recover from a cold or a flu or a pulled muscle, things you'd scarcely notice over a period of time.
For the sake of time, I want to ask you guys to put this all together. Okay, let's say somebody watching this, they think, okay, I'm not getting my minerals from the foods that I eat, and I'm not taking liquid minerals. Where does somebody start with mineral supplementation?
The first step that you have to take in this whole process is establish a benchmark. You do that by getting a hold of one of our hair tests. You can go down to your local health food store and ask for it. You can call us direct.
So like Jimbo's, places like that, they have this follicle test.
Exactly. The hair
test.
I don't like
not
to
a
use the
follicle.
word follicle because that implies pain.
Okay.
It's a totally painless test.
Sure.
Once you've established what your mineral balance is, what this test is also, the results are also going to provide you is a guideline, a menu of the minerals that you need to take, of our Eidon liquid minerals, to begin to balance yourself.
I want to thank both of you for coming on the show, but you're really seeing people that are feeling better, that things are reversing.
Randy, you do seem skeptical. I want to let you know that absolutely.
Thanks again. We'll have to have you back.
Thank you very
We'd
much,
love to
Randy.
be back.
Thank you.
You've been watching The Wellness Hour. I'm Randy Alvarez. I wish you good health.
Thank you for joining us for the Wellness Hour, an in-depth look at a variety of health issues. Your host was Randy Alvarez, the recognized expert on wellness issues.